Winston Zeddemore. I remembered his name. Apparently this movie didn't remember to use him because he's barely in it. They use him very sparingly. He shows up in key scenes and that's it. He's shown hanging out with the other Ghostbusters once. Maybe twice. You'd be lying if you said it was 3. What's up everybody, welcome back to the HEZ Project. I'm John Ortolaza and we're continuing on our HEZ-WEEN event where we talk about Halloween horror themed films during the month of October. Today is Ghostbusters 2. Now I don't believe I've ever seen this film before. Maybe I started it years ago. Like I watched the first Ghostbusters one night with my mom and I think we watched the second one. Maybe we started it. None of this really looked familiar to me though. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a first time watch. And I gotta be honest, it wasn't that bad. It's not as good as the first one. Let me just outright say that. That first one just has a specialty to it, a warmthness to it. Something that 80s movies and just movies that old don't really do for me today. I feel like Ghostbusters is amongst the batch that stand out to me and actually are really great filmmaking because there's just a lot of older movies. I've explained this in my Halloween review that there's a lot of older movies that just don't appeal to my eye because they're filmed a certain way and everything's filmed the same and it feels like it's part of the same universe. This Ghostbusters at least just felt different to me and it felt like it was alive. It feels like it could stand the test of time and really it has because I watched it a couple weeks ago and I still had a blast with it. And this movie, some of that effect is still there. Let me just outright say the performances by the entire cast are just as good, if not slightly better, a smidge better than the original. Just everybody feels alive and they feel like they belong in all of these roles. Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Ernie Hudson and Harold Ramis. I remembered all their names now. They're all great in the film. Like when they bounce back and forth with each other, it's just so fun and entertaining to see them live in this world together. And I buy them as a friend group, like a duo or a quadro. Now that I remember his name, Ernie Hudson, who plays Winston Zeddemore, which is really a cool name, I was okay with how they portrayed him and how they utilized him in the first film. I thought that was very natural, how he just came about and joined the group later on in the film. From my memory, I didn't remember that he didn't show up until like halfway through and didn't become a Ghostbuster until halfway through. I thought he was like from the start to finish, but my memory failed me at that point. So I thought that was really cool how they did his story in the first film, but in this one, they're out of business, so what it seems, and it's Winston and Stance who are doing birthday parties as the Ghostbusters because they're out of business and this is what they gotta do. Seemingly all of them went their separate ways with the exception of these two who stayed as the Ghostbusters to do birthday parties. And when it's revealed that paranormal activity has been reported, the gang gets back together, but suddenly Winston disappears. And he's very absent throughout a lot of this film, and that just blows my mind. I don't get it. He's in this film just as much as he was in the last one, and it's like very little. I was just kind of disappointed with that. I don't know what that is, if there's something behind it, or he just, I don't know, wasn't available at the time. I don't know. It's just kind of disappointing because like he's a cool character. I like him, and I just wanted to see more of it, but unfortunately he was just not in it too much, which was bizarre. It was just a really bizarre choice to me. As much as I can watch all 4 of these guys banter back and forth and just be their goofy selves on screen, I feel like they went just a little too much with the goofiness and with the chilled back nature of the film. This feels like if a TV series was made out of the original film with the same cast, but it was just smaller scaled stories being told, and this feels like 3 or 4 of those episodes. The opening of this movie sees Sigourney Weaver's character Dana pushing a baby in a stroller when the baby runs over some goo on the stroller and then the stroller just starts taking off by itself. I mean, it's on wheels, so like it could happen. But no, there was some goo coming out of the sidewalk and then she stops the stroller and then boom, Ghostbusters 2 it shows up on the screen. Like, Okay, that was an odd opening. I wonder who the villain's gonna be. And then for like a big portion of the film, it's just looking like the villain's gonna be Goo. Like, they did not really set up who the villain was gonna be, or did not really like showcase any cool, fun ghosts or anything up until like the courthouse scene about 30, 40 minutes in. And then pretty much it was just Goo. Like, they were observing and trying to dissect Goo and see what it's all about, see where this Goo's coming from and what this Goo can do. It's like reactionary Goo or whatever, that if it's on you, then you start like getting all angry and stuff, and you could swear at the Goo and it'll just start bubbling up and boiling. Like, okay. It just screamed TV plot to me, because never once during this film did I see this Goo or the painting stuff. We'll get to that in a second. Never once did I see any of these things being a real threat to society or the Ghostbusters. Rick Moranis is back in this film. He's not the nosy neighbor anymore that I just thought he played brilliantly. He's their defense attorney, because this entire movie, the Ghostbusters are like on trial. They're just being ridiculed by the public eye and by the press, the government. Everybody just is dogging on them because they think ghosts didn't exist. Weird comparison, but it does stand, I think. We remember tragedies in the real world for years and decades to come, whereas in this in-universe event of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man literally stepping on people in New York City just happened nearly 5 years prior to this film, and they're like, no, these guys are phonies. It just came across very silly to me how these people were acting that way towards the Ghostbusters, that they were just still 100% against them. It was almost like they were trying to progress with a sequel, but at the same time hitting the reset button, hitting a little bit of the reboot button so that they could like just redo some stuff. And I don't know, I didn't feel too good about that. Dana works at an art gallery now, and her boss in the film is like this weird little Weasley, curly-haired, eccentric dude with an accent, and for a split second, I thought this might have been Rick Moranis in like prosthetics or something, because we hadn't seen him yet in the film. I was wondering if he was going to play a different character or not. But no, he returned as his old character. That was just a weird theory I had. He bonds with this ghost painting later, and the ghost painting comes to life and becomes the baddie. I don't know, it just seemed a little too off to me. I was kind of just not into it at that point. There was a little bit of subtlety to that first film. I know they had ghost characters just up in your face at times, like the green dude, forgot his name, Slimeball or something, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, of course, and then that one skeletal looking person that was like a queen or king or something, like who showed up at the top of the Empire State Building with the clouds and whatnot. Like, that was wild, dude. But I loved it. It was subtle to me. This just felt like it was like a rock star ghost like coming out of a painting, and it was just off for me, and I just wasn't buying this character as a threat. It's just a 3D painting who fell out of the canvas. And another thing, I'm not super into the Ghostbusters trope of things coming to life. Like, I kind of didn't mind it with the gargoyles. Like, that's a cool concept, but the way they animated it back then obviously didn't make it look as crisp as it could have been nowadays if it was made today. But the whole thing where they brought to life Lady Liberty and started walking around New York City, like, that was just a little too much for me. I will say, if you have not seen this film, go check it out. It's a very fun time. If you enjoyed the Ghostbusters from the first one, just for some reason haven't seen the second one, go watch it. You're gonna be entertained regardless, with these great dynamic actors on screen just putting a smile on your face every minute. The first half, like I said, is very entertaining. I love to see these characters interact with one another, but it just doesn't feel like the movie kicks into third gear until like halfway through, if not a little bit later. Anyways, guys, that is my review for Ghostbusters 2. Let me know down below, have you gotten a chance to check that out yet? Which one is your favorite out of the two? Do you agree with me how this kind of feels like B-level Ghostbusters to me? It's just how I felt. Like, nothing in this movie felt consequential or like a threat than everything did in the first film. It just felt very organic in that one, and I just love that movie. It's actually really freaking good. And if you guys haven't checked it out, my review is up on the channel. I still have A Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th left for this year's HEZ-WEEN event. Stick around for the rest of the month. We still have like, what, 6-7 days left. Those are gonna be some fun videos, let me tell you that. I have some thoughts on both films. I'm just gonna tease a little bit. They're polar opposite thoughts. for both films. I think one thing, and I think the completely opposite about the other. That's all I'm gonna say, guys. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new, and be sure to stick around because there is always more to come.